It usually starts quietly, not with chaos, not with drama, but with a moment most people wouldn't notice. You're lying next to someone who genuinely cares about you. Their presence is warm, steady, available. And instead of feeling safe, something tightens inside your chest. Your mind starts scanning. Your body subtly prepares to retreat. You tell yourself you're tired, or busy, or unsure. But underneath that calm reasoning is something older, something wordless, a sense that staying will cost you something you can't afford to lose. Here's the paradox no one warned you about. The distance that once protected you is now the very thing starving you. You didn't push people away because you're cold, or avoidant by nature, or incapable of love. You pushed them away because at some point closeness became unsafe, and your nervous system never forgot. So now, when real love shows up, the kind that doesn't demand performance, the kind that stays, your body interprets it as a threat. Because what once kept you alive is now quietly keeping you alone. And you feel the contradiction every day. You crave intimacy, but flinch when it gets too close. You want to be seen, but panic when someone looks too carefully. You tell yourself you're independent, self-sufficient, fine on your own. But late at night, there's a grief you can't name. Not the grief of losing someone, but the grief of never letting yourself be held. People who push away real love aren't broken, they're patterned, specifically, patterned by avoidant attachment, often shaped by early emotional inconsistency, neglect, or environments where closeness came with strings attached. Avoidant attachment isn't about not needing people. It's about needing them, and learning that need equals danger. When caregivers are emotionally unavailable, unpredictable, or overwhelmed, the child adapts. They stop reaching. They internalize the belief, if I depend on myself, I won't be disappointed. This isn't a conscious decision. It's a nervous system adaptation. Over time, hypervigilance develops. Your body becomes exquisitely sensitive to shifts in tone, mood, expectation. You learn to read rooms, anticipate withdrawal, preempt rejection by leaving first. And then there's emotional neglect schemas. The deep-seated belief that your emotional needs are either excessive, inconvenient, or invisible. You weren't necessarily abused. You were simply alone with your feelings. So your brain's default mode network, the system responsible for self-referential thought, wires itself around self-containment. I handle things myself. I don't need much. I'm fine. But here's the cost. These adaptations don't stay in childhood. They become identity. They shape who you're attracted to, how you bond, how you interpret silence, and how your body reacts to intimacy. Love stops feeling like connection. It starts feeling like exposure, like standing without armor in a place where you once learned armor was essential. Carl Jung once said, "What we do not make conscious will direct our lives, and we will call it fate." This is the invisible grief of those who push love away. Not heartbreak, but the slow ache of never fully arriving. You sacrifice authenticity for control, vulnerability for autonomy, softness for survival, and the fear underneath it all is simple but profound, the fear of being undone by closeness. You fear needing someone and losing yourself. You fear rest, because rest once meant being unprotected. You fear depending, because dependence once led to disappointment. So even joy becomes complicated. A loving message triggers suspicion. Consistency feels unfamiliar. Peace feels like the calm before loss. You rehearse exits in your mind. You keep one foot out the door, not because you want to leave, but because staying feels like surrender. And the tragedy? The world sees you as strong, capable, independent, put together. But inside there's a quiet exhaustion from always being the one holding yourself together. No one sees the grief of what never happened. The conversations you never let unfold. The arms you never fully relaxed into. The version of you that never learned it was safe to be held without disappearing. These patterns don't stay abstract. They show up everywhere. You might find that in relationships you pull away just as things deepen. You become critical, distracted, or suddenly busy when intimacy grows. You're drawn to emotionally unavailable partners because distance feels familiar, and uninterested in those who are truly present. In your career, you may overperform but underreceive. You struggle to ask for help. Rest feels undeserved, Achievement becomes a substitute for attachment. Your self-worth becomes conditional. You feel valuable when useful, impressive, or needed, but deeply uncomfortable when simply cared for. Your boundaries confuse even you. You oscillate between rigid independence and sudden emotional withdrawal. Letting people in feels like losing control. Emotionally, you intellectualize feelings instead of inhabiting them. You analyze pain rather than allowing it. You stay composed while quietly disconnecting. And internally, your identity fractures. Part of you longs for closeness. Another part is devoted to self-protection at all costs. None of this is who you are. These are coping mechanisms. And the beginning of healing is not forcing yourself to be different, but learning to witness these patterns without shaming them. Awareness is not self-gaslighting. It's the moment you stop abandoning yourself in the name of survival. Unlearning begins when you recognize that the environment has changed, but your nervous system hasn't caught up yet. Healing doesn't mean tearing down your defenses overnight. It means thanking them and gently teaching them they're no longer needed. Inner child reparenting begins when you offer yourself what was missing, emotional presence without condition. You learn to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. You stay. Shadow work invites you to reclaim the parts of yourself you exiled, the needy parts, the soft parts, the parts that wanted more. Nervous system regulation becomes essential. Safety isn't a thought, it's a felt experience. Breath, stillness, consistency, repetition. And slowly, painfully, you practice choosing softness over survival mode. You let yourself need without apologizing. You allow closeness without rehearsing exits. You stay when every instinct tells you to run, not perfectly, but intentionally. Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote, "Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer." The goal is not to be fixed. It is not to erase your past. The goal is to become whole, to integrate the part of you that learned to survive with the part of you that longs to be loved. If this resonated, share it with someone who might feel seen for the first time. And if you're walking this unlearning path, you're not alone here. Real love isn't dangerous, but learning that takes time, and you're allowed to take it.